Hello, I have a wealth of information to tell you today about success with the Medtronic Minimed 780G insulin pump. So I've been using this insulin pump for a few years. I've been writing about it, and I thought it was time to make a video, whether you are just curious, like what is an insulin pump, or whether you are considering upgrading to this insulin pump. I'm sure you'll find something interesting today. So let's dive on in. We'll talk about who I am. I am not, my intro, I am not associated with Medtronic in any way. I am somebody who got LADA diabetes and have been using an insulin pump and like to talk about what I've learned. So quick intro, and then we'll talk about the daily driving using this pump. So I'm going to use the car metaphor. Like a car, there's the daily activity of driving the car, and then there is the maintenance. You have to fill up the gas tank, change the tires, replace the battery. So there's those three parts. Let's dive on in. This is not medical advice. This is personal story about my life with diabetes and with this insulin pump. I got LADA diabetes in 2014, latent autoimmune diabetes in adults. I was 30 years old, and my A1C was off the charts. It was 11.5. And I was misdiagnosed, and there's a whole nother YouTube video about that misdiagnosis. Check it out if you're interested. This one, I'm going to focus on the insulin pump. I did insulin shots, insulin injections for a while before getting on the 670G insulin pump, which was the previous model, and then I upgraded to the 780G insulin pump, the Medtronic Minimed 780G insulin pump, and that's what this is all about, this video. So let's dive into that. When I first got the older model, the 670G, I wrote a blog post back in 2020. I said, getting an insulin pump is like a new puppy. I was very positive about the pump, but in retrospect, it being like a new puppy was not the greatest compliment. It took up a lot of my time. Big difference, this new model. I would not say it's like getting a new puppy. I would say that how getting an insulin pump is like hiring a full-time assistant. Yes, full-time assistant. That's how good I feel about this insulin pump. So that's why I can really advocate for it, that this was a great move for me, and perhaps you too. You maybe this will save you a lot of mental energy, and you'll have success. Success is not just numbers. Success is sleeping through the entire night. I rarely wake up because of a diabetes-related issue. So yes, this does not have to be a headache interruption, not a puppy, but an assistant who knows that I am sleeping. No hypos, no hypoglycemia, no low blood sugar. The biggest thing that this pump is optimized for is keeping you safe and making sure that it doesn't give you too much insulin. It's not to say that that doesn't happen every once in a while, but in general, no hypos, no hypoglycemia. Great time in range. I am getting 80 to 90% in range on a typical day. A1C, my A1C was 6.1 at my last test, the best A1C I've ever had. Few interruptions. Yeah, not thinking about diabetes. That was the biggest surprise with this insulin pump. Once I really got familiar with it, I wasn't thinking about my diabetes as much. Terrific, wonderful relief there. And just enjoying my life, because there's a lot more to life than diabetes. So yes, and getting or staying in shape, I've been able to maintain my weight and not gain weight, which is sometimes an issue. So the insulin pump is great in that. It's been great for me. So this is about my personal story. And hopefully there's something here that will really be a takeaway for you. And being prepared for the unexpected. It is a technology. You do have to be prepared for what if it stops working, and have a backup plan, because if you need insulin every day, and you can't go without. So the insulin pump, it keeps track of time and range, and this is a collage of the how my time and range is. So no day is the same. Every day is different. 100% is a rarity. It's normal to go out of range a little bit. totally fine. But getting in the 80s and 90s happens regularly, and this is an impressive time and range. The pump has two modes. So it's sort of like you could think about this sort of the car analogy, a manual or an automatic transmission. So there's manual mode and there's SmartGuard, which is the auto mode. SmartGuard is the best. You have to be in manual mode for the first 3 midnights of using this pump. So for the first few days, you will be in manual mode, but after that, you can go into SmartGuard mode and stay in SmartGuard mode, and it is great. The user experience is much better, and the algorithm is very good. A lot of automation. So manual mode looks like the one on the left, and the one with the shield, that's SmartGuard. And for the rest of this presentation, I'm going to be talking solely about SmartGuard mode because that is the better mode that you can stay in. The daily driving, you want the pump to do things for you. So let's dive in. I wear it on my belt. You can wear it any way you want. I had a teacher back like over 30 years ago I had a teacher, I was in grade school, and she had an insulin pump on her belt. And I was kind of puzzled. I was like, how does a medical device on your belt connect to you? I didn't see the tubing. I'm sure there was tubing, but I didn't see the tubing. And I was like, is there a needle that goes through her clothes? And I didn't know anything about what an insulin pump was. So an insulin pump looks like this. I mean, there's other models out there, but a lot of them look like sort of like pagers or small cell phones. You can clip it to your belt, or you can wear it in your pocket, or lots of different ways to wear it. And there's no needle, so there's no pain. I mean, my daily basis, this is all without feeling any kind of sensation. So the tubing is very small, and it has a very small plastic piece that goes under your skin, and the insulin goes through that tubing under your skin subcutaneously, and your body absorbs it, which is really quite amazing, fascinating that works for your body, because generally, in a healthy person without diabetes, insulin's only produced in the pancreas, which is an organ behind the stomach, and there's special beta cells that produce the insulin, and that's the only place in your body that produces insulin. So it's amazing that we can put the insulin through this little tube just under your skin, and we're talking about just slightly under your skin, and that it gets absorbed throughout your body. So fascinating there. And so that's what it looks like when I'm wearing my insulin pump. And hopefully that demystifies some of what an insulin pump is. They call it an artificial pancreas sometimes. Well, it doesn't do everything your pancreas does. It only gives a hormone, insulin, which is a natural hormone, but the pancreas does a lot more. So that's why there's a lot of things to know about. And the biggest one is that you have to develop the habit of giving yourself insulin for food. If you already have diabetes, and if you have already had this habit, then this is going to be nothing new to you. But if you are diagnosed with diabetes recently, or recently needing insulin for your diabetes, this is a habit that can take time to build. Studies say it can take about 2 months to really develop a habit. And there's great variation in how long it takes. But don't be hard on yourself. Be very kind to yourself. Try to remember to give yourself insulin before you eat. And I guess I might as well just pay attention, because my pump is beeping, and I have the volume on low. So I don't know if you can actually hear it, but it's telling me alert before low, and there's a flashing light. And it's telling me alert on, actually it says alert on low. But I just ate some gummies, and I'm doing this YouTube video, which makes me a little bit more stressed. So probably my blood sugar will go up just fine, but I do have fruit gummies in my pocket. So when I say that you don't get hypoglycemia, you don't get low blood sugar, it's not that that never happens with this pump, but that it is predictive. So it will predict that you're going to go low 20 minutes beforehand. And if you have something on you, I always keep fruit gummies on me in my pocket. And if you keep that on you, it will be an easy, quick fix. And then your blood sugar will go back up before you ever feel the effects of going low. So let me take a moment actually and have some fruit gummies, because it's if you ignore the warning and you go low, then you're gonna feel icky, shaky, and probably overeat, because when you're really low, you're like, oh, I'm so hungry because my blood sugar is low. Your body's saying do something to raise it up. So it's better to pay attention and say, if you're gonna go low, eat something sugary. You don't want to have, it should be something fast acting, glucose gummies, glucose tabs, juice boxes, soda, that kind of thing. The insulin pump can't raise your blood sugar. It can raise your blood sugar by, it'll stop giving you insulin if it thinks you're going to go low, but you have to give yourself sugar if the insulin's already in your body. Okay, so you want to develop the habit of giving yourself insulin for food. This is probably the first thing they teach you about insulin. You need to be aware that you got to pair insulin with food. This insulin pump, has a very good shortcut. You just press the down button and that opens up the Bolus wizard. You put in the number of carbohydrates. You can find out lots of information about carb counting online if you're not familiar with carb counting. But carbohydrates is the type of food that most directly and immediately raises blood sugar. So this is pasta, bread, rice, and other kinds of food that has it has carbohydrates in it. This is compared to protein and fat. Protein and fat do have an effect on blood sugar, but it's much more gradual. So we count the carbs. This insulin pump is smart enough to adjust it, so it learns you. It takes a time, but after several months, it will learn you pretty well, and it will actually suggest less if it thinks you might go low if you give a high amount of insulin at one time. And then it shows you when it's doing the insulin bolus, and you can't feel anything. The insulin goes through a tiny tube under your skin. I guess occasionally you might feel slight stinging depending on where the infusion set is. Most of the time, though, I don't feel it at all. And this is based on the insulin carb ratio that you have configured in your insulin pump. So there's a setting there and you can adjust it. So one thing to know is if you're always going high after you eat, if your blood sugar always goes high, that probably means that your insulin to carb ratio isn't set correctly, or you're not giving yourself enough time after you do the insulin before you eat. So definitely work with your doctor, your healthcare team to adjust the insulin carb ratio. And as you grow and change, you might need a different insulin to carb ratio. And so this number is not a static number. It is something you to work with your doctor to adjust. So that is the one thing that is the formula that goes behind determining how much insulin is given to you when you use that bolus wizard there and enter the number of carbohydrates. You want to let the pump do the hard work. That's why I said it's like an assistant. It's not a puppy, it's an assistant. So here we have two pictures. On the left here, we have a screenshot. So there is a mobile app. So on your phone, you can see your blood sugar and you can see a CGM graph. And there's autocorrections. The blue lines there at the top is autocorrections. So what you want to do is you want to give yourself insulin for when you eat, and then you want to be hands off because the pump has to learn to do the autocorrections on its own. And that's the joy of using this technology. And with that in mind, you want to customize your alerts, your high alert. I have it set at 240 milligrams per deciliter, which is about 13.3 millimole per liter, depending on where you are. There's two different systems here. We got the imperial system and the metric system. In any case, your pump might have slightly different numbers, different set of numbers depending on what country you're in. But it has a setting, and you can set it up so it only notifies you if you reach a certain number. Ideally, this is a number that you don't usually reach because the pump does autocorrections. We're optimizing for as few alerts as possible here. So here's another screenshot from the mobile app. This is a zoomed out view of the graph. This is showing about almost like the last full day. And it shows you that I did go a little bit high out of range after eating. However, those blue lines at the top were autocorrections and they brought me back in range. And the alert level was above, so it never reached the alert level. So I just went on my life and did my life, and it automatically corrected. This can also be called looping. Looping, where you have a sensor, a CGM, continuous glucose monitor sensor, and the insulin pump is responding to that sensor value there automatically. So it's a system. There's the piece that goes under your skin to deliver the insulin, and then there's a separate sensor which also goes under your skin, and that sensor monitors your blood sugar, and that wirelessly connects to your pump. So it's a very interesting system here that is working on your behalf. The pump does give alerts: alert on high, alert before low. This is examples of the alerts, and it says check BG because the sensor can be inaccurate. This pump does not generally require that you do finger pricks. However, it can occasionally be a good idea to see, is the pump right, especially if the pump is saying, hey, you've got low blood sugar, and you're like, I don't feel like I have low blood sugar. Check your blood sugar with a finger stick, blood glucose, and then you can calibrate the pump that way, and it'll correct the sensor reading. And I've got my picture over the screen, the message here, sorry about that, but feeling hungry has nothing to do with your blood sugar level. That is like something I learned early on, because I thought, oh, I feel hungry, I must have low blood sugar, need to eat. Well, no, I can feel hungry when my blood sugar is high. Yes, it's true that when I go low, generally I'll feel hungry. However, hunger isn't anything to do with blood sugar. And the fact that there is no connection here is a challenge. And I would say this is the challenge of the daily driving of an insulin pump, because you don't want to eat a whole bunch of food, especially lots of carbohydrates, when your blood sugar is already high, because it's like putting fuel on the fire, and then your blood sugar will even go higher. And once your blood sugar goes high, then the pump has difficulty staying in range then. So if your blood sugar is high and you are hungry, it's best if you can satisfy that hunger without eating something high in carbohydrates. So I like to have low carbohydrate snacks on hand, like cheese and nuts. Hard-boiled eggs are also a great example. Vegetables that aren't starchy are also good. Ideally you can find some foods that you enjoy snacking on that will make you feel less hungry, and you can eat those foods when your blood sugar is high to wait for your blood sugar to come down before you have your big meal or your carbohydrates. So this is a technique to help out there when you feel hungry. So if my blood sugar is high, like 229 is high, I'm not going to eat then. I mean, I have to admit that sometimes I give into temptation and I eat anyway, and that's one of those days where I don't have such a great blood sugar day. I go out of range. But I don't feel so good if that happens too, so I try to wait until my blood sugar comes down. So what do? If I'm hungry and my blood sugar is high, I do the insulin bolus for the meal. I might do a little bit extra insulin because I know my blood sugar is high and I need some of that insulin to help me get my blood sugar lower. The other thing I could do as an alternative is exercise. Exercise is great at lowering blood sugar. But to get that great number and stay in range and really have good numbers, I find that I have to have patience and wait for my blood sugar to come into range. So that is the that's the trick here. If you're always high and you eat some food, you're just going to go higher, and then you'll probably be frustrated, being like, this pump doesn't work. Well, the pump doesn't work because you ate food when you're out of range. So ideally, I mean, it works out best when I wait for my blood sugar to be dropping or staying steady, but in the lower half of the in range. So like 100 to 130 milligrams per deciliter, somewhere in there, and then eating then. So yeah, timing is everything. It's the timing of insulin to carbs. That's the whole thing. And ultimately, as though the pump is very good, you know more about what's going on in your life than the pump knows. So you have to make the decisions to figure out what should I eat and when. And planning for exercise. So besides food, exercise is the other thing that has a big impact on blood sugar. It works best if you put it in exercise mode. And exercise mode is called temp target mode. Put it in exercise mode about 2 hours before you exercise. Now, if you forget, you can still exercise. You might need to drink a little juice or soda or have a little snack or something. But it's not like the end of the world. But if you want to exercise without taking in more calories, which is how you stay in shape, because if you're eating a whole bunch of food and then exercising so that you don't go low, then those are all calories that can cause weight gain. So ideally, you plan ahead for the exercise. You set the temp target mode, and that tells the pump, I'm going to exercise soon. Please aim for a little higher blood sugar level, and also don't give me any autocorrections, because we don't want extra insulin on board. I'm going to exercise, and so when I exercise, I'm going to become more insulin sensitive. So yeah, eating and exercise are the two things you need to plan for in order to really have success with the daily driving of this insulin pump. Like I said, it's not perfect. It takes some thought. It also requires awareness of your own habits, of your own activities, of yourself, a mindfulness. And that can be a benefit, because if you realize, oh, I always seem to get hungry after work. Oh, you've just found a pattern. Okay, so you're going to get hungry after work. Okay, maybe I should do some insulin. Maybe I'm only like 10 minutes from home, and I don't know what I'm going to eat, but I'm ravenous. I'm hungry. Do that insulin. When you get home, the insulin will have started working, and then get some food. You can always do more insulin if you eat more than you expected. There's nothing wrong with that. So so one of the silver linings of I've found there's actually a lot of silver linings, because there's a lot of insight I've learned about my body by using an insulin pump. About how the mind-body connection thing, what is mental and physical are all one, really. There's huge overlap there. Anyway, you have to observe yourself in order to be a rock star here and have success. You have to know, when am I most likely to exercise or do something that requires a lot of activity? When am I most likely to eat? And then planning ahead. It takes a while, but there's benefits to that. And when you do get low blood sugar, you want the fast-acting glucose. Sure, you could eat ice cream, or you could have milk, which has carbohydrates in it. However, milk and ice cream have fat, and the fat slows down absorption. It can also increase the calorie intake. So you want something as pure as sugar as possible, fruit snacks, glucose gummies, something with sugar, pure sugar, and then that will work really quickly. And ideally, it kicks in really quick, and then you never feel the low blood sugar. And then you don't have the roller coaster, because most of the time when I have a roller coaster, it's from overeating when I'm low. That's the most likely time. I mean, there's also where I forget and I eat more and I forget to give enough insulin because I ate more and I forgot about it. I mean, that happens as well. But a key part of not having that roller coaster is preventing the low blood sugar. And how you do that is, as soon as the device says, hey, you're going to go low, you have a small bit of something with glucose in it, like gummies or juice. Yes. So that's the daily habits there. This all hinges on your sensor working. The sensors work for 7 days. Sometimes they can have little issues. Sometimes those issues happen because you're dehydrated. So I have found that if my graph goes away and I see there was a gap in that graph where the sensor wasn't working, it came back after I drank some water. So drinking water, staying hydrated can really help the sensor work better and therefore the whole system work better. So that's a critical piece of this as well. Okay, and you don't want to be waking up when you're trying to take a nap, right? So you want to snooze those alarms when you don't want an interrupt. And under sound and vibration, they have silence sensor alerts, and you can choose how long to silence the alert for. So a common habit is if I'm going to take a nap or I'm going to bed, but my blood sugar is a little bit high, and I think it's going to maybe alert me, I will silence the sensor alert for maybe an hour or 2 hours. And then that way it won't bother me. Probably if you set your alert level high enough, this won't even become a thing. Like most of the time I don't even have to do this because I set my alert level so high I don't usually reach it. But it's good to know. You can silence the sensor alerts. A lot of freedom here. Okay, let's talk about the maintenance of this insulin pump next. Just like a car, you need to fill the gas tank and do maintenance work. It's a fact of life here that the insulin pump will not continue working unless you take care of its needs. So I found that doing the insulin pump chores before you need to is how you are able to sleep through the night and not be interrupted and not think about diabetes when you don't want to. So most of the different notifications, reminders, alarms that this pump does, that you can modify them or turn them off. However, one notification that you cannot disable is the low battery notification. And technology generally works better when the battery isn't low. So my advice is change the battery before it's low. And how do you do that is you do it on a schedule. So everybody's a little bit different with how frequently they need to change the battery. It takes like all different kinds of batteries. It's a double A battery, a very standard battery. You can use a lithium battery, a nickel metal hydride battery, or a lithium battery. And right now I'm using a rechargeable nickel metal hydride battery. And if I recharge that battery or really swap it out for a charged battery every 2 weeks, I never get this low battery pump notification. So there, it's problem solved. I change the battery before it's low. Change the infusion set regularly. There are 3-day infusion sets and 7-day infusion sets. This is probably the most important thing to change on time. Just you don't want to risk an infection. The interface, the human technology interface, the cyborg part of this whole system where you're connected to a device, that's the part that is the most variable. Your body can change how it reacts. So yes, get it on a calendar, change the infusion set on time. I admit I've gone longer because I forget sometimes, and it's okay, but it's been okay for me. But you want to be on top of it. Okay, and then a very important part of the system is the sensor, the CGM, the continuous glucose monitor. You want to change that before the 7 days is up. Yep, and then also you want to fill the new insulin reservoir before it's empty. This pump is very user-friendly. So I said before, you just press the down button to bolus for a meal. You just press the up button to see the status. So I make it a habit to press the up button to see the status screen at least once a day to see how much insulin do I have in the insulin pump, how much longer do I have on the sensor. One thing to know is if it says you have 1 day left on the sensor, that's actually less than 1 day. So that's the one criticism I would give about this pump's interface here, that it should not say 1 day if it's less than 1 day. And then it shows you the battery levels for both the pump and the transmitter. The transmitter is what connects to the sensor. So everything there is at your fingertips in one status screen. the insulin reservoir looks like this. So the blue part is comes off. That's the connector. That's for filling up the insulin from the insulin vial. But that clearish part, that is the insulin reservoir that holds the insulin. It's a fairly easy, I say it's easy to fill up the insulin, but it did take me practice, and this is something that's worth practicing to get it down, because you're gonna want to do this, with ease. So you want to practice this, and after a while it'll become like second nature. Finding the right infusion set is very important. So there's a lot of different variables, and if the infusion set that you first try doesn't work for you, talk to your diabetes educator. Medtronic, they have help on this. I had a dexterity issue. The quick set, you have to sort of turn it to disconnect. So what's great about the insulin pump is you can disconnect from it. For example, taking a shower, I always disconnect, but I had dexterity issues, and the quick set one was difficult for me to disconnect from. So I've since switched to the Medtronic extended infusion set, which not only is 7 days long, but also it has an easier disconnect mechanism. Different infusion sets have different properties as well, like the angle of insertion is different, and the tubing length can be different. So if the tubing is not long enough for your daily activities, you can get an infusion set that has a longer tubing. This might be a very helpful way to just make life a little bit easier. And you want to plan for that sensor warm-up time. So a really, I guess the biggest interrupt is that you have to replace the sensor every 7 days, and it takes 2 hours to warm up the sensor. And during those 2 hours, you don't have a sensor reading. It looks like this. In SmartGuard mode, it will stay in the SmartGuard mode, and it will automatically deliver insulin to you. It does a pretty good job at guessing how much insulin to give you. But what I found is that I do this sensor warm-up thing first thing in the morning, and I don't eat anything while it's happening, because it's just easier to let it warm up and then calibrate it after it warms up. Now, calibration is optional. However, with a new sensor, I want to see how good it is. Is it reading well? So I will calibrate it after it warms up, and then I will eat. And not eating, it's a little bit of an inconvenience, but if I do this first thing in the morning, it just makes life easier. I also do something called marinate the sensor. It's optional. I don't know, it depends. Sometimes it seems to have a benefit, because on the first day, the sensor can be a little bit wonky. So I like to marinate the sensor. So I put the new sensor under my skin about 8 hours before, like the night before, and then I don't start using it until the next day. And I think this has to do how your body reacts to like this thing being inserted under your skin. Probably everybody's different on whether this is helpful, but if you look up marinating, and I have something on my website about this as well, and also I learned about this from a Facebook group. There's a great Facebook group on support group for this pump. I will post that in the link in the comments. But yeah, you can marinate ahead of time, which makes the sensor work better on the first day if you run into problems with it not working as well on the first day. And then you still have to do the 2-hour warm-up, which is probably the biggest downside of this whole system. Some people do it before they go to bed at night, because the pump doesn't require calibration. I prefer to do it in the morning, because I don't want to risk the sleep interruption. I think getting sleep without interruption is a big deal. And so I prefer to marinate in the morning. I mean, I prefer to start the sensor in the morning, but everybody's different. Whatever fits your lifestyle, right? And you can calibrate. So if the sensor is not accurate, you can calibrate twice. I mean, you can calibrate just once, but calibration, if you do it twice with like some time between those calibrations, then it's more likely to improve the accuracy better, just because of how calibration works. So while this does not require calibration and does not require finger pricks, when I do calibrate, I often do it twice in one day, but I might not do it again for another 5 days. So it's not like an everyday thing. But like, look at this. This is excellent. The blood glucose meter said 116. The sensor says 114. That's extremely close. Like if they're within like 10 or 15 points, that's close. And if it's really close, no, I won't calibrate again. But if it's further, if it's like further, if the accuracy is not so great, then I will calibrate twice, which will get it much better. It's amazing though how accurate a lot of times the sensors are. And the sensor, the sensor connects to this device called a transmitter that has a battery in it. It's a rechargeable battery. The transmitter is guaranteed has a warranty for 1 year. You can keep using it after the warranty is over with. However, I do recommend replacing the transmitter because if the transmitter stops working, this whole system stops working. It's not worth it. So I did let it go one time, and I wrote a blog post. I'm like, my transmitter died and I'm blue, and it took a bit to get the new transmitter. And since then, I've been staying on top of it and getting the transmitter earlier because it's so critical to the whole system. So the transmitter connects to the sensor, and this transmits the sensor value wirelessly to your pump, and so it's a key piece of the whole thing. And your support team is everywhere. Learning how to use the insulin pump is one of the things that I'm most proud of that I learned how to use. It's a new skill. It takes time. When the very first time when it stopped working, when I had a problem where the sensor reading wasn't working, and this was on the older model, I was like frantic, call up Medtronic support. They walked me through some steps, and it started working fine. Again, a lot of times problems will resolve themselves. Like the sensor might not work for a little while, and it might just start working on its own and come back. It's not really an emergency. It's still giving you insulin. But if you're ever concerned, you can call up the support team. There's a phone number on the bottom of the pump, and they're very good at technical troubleshooting and figuring out what you need to do to fix the issue. So a lot of good support there. Medtronic has videos on their website. So if you're trying to figure out how do you fill up your insulin reservoir, how do you replace the infusion set, there's videos with close up, that show close up how to go through these steps, and you can replay the videos as many times as you need. And when I first started doing this, I literally watched the video, hit pause, and try to do what the video is showing, and then play the video. It takes time to repeat the steps to learn how to use it. And then I already mentioned there's a Facebook support group, a link in the comments there, and your family wants to help. There's a great book about living with diabetes. Can't be perfect, but it can be better. And in that book, the author makes the point that when you have diabetes, your family also has diabetes, and the fact that they want to help. And so if you give them a way to help you, whether it's something simple like, can you remind me to do my insulin before I eat? Or maybe they help you put the sensor on you. I mean, that can be sometimes easier if somebody else helps you with that. Or just anything, any way they can help. Reach out to your family and friends. Don't hesitate. This is too important. You need the insulin to survive. People should understand how it works. They should understand the importance of it. And that's a big part of why I'm doing this video and I'm writing about it, because it's a critical thing to my life, to millions of people are dealing with this, and a lot of people don't know about it. I work in technology. I'm a software engineer. I didn't know what an insulin pump was. It was all like, really, what is this? And it's amazing use of technology because it's so reliable. It never crashes. It never restarts. I've never had a catastrophic pump failure. Yes, you should be prepared for a pump failure in case. You should have a backup insulin plan. But like, this technology is built so well. If only all the other tech companies in the world could build technology this good, it'd be amazing. We'd have so much less stress. So it's really admirable how far this has come, and it's imperfect, but just the jump up from the last model, the 670G to the 780G, the fact that it went from a puppy that I had to babysit and train. With the old model, I had to calibrate twice a day. I I had to leave the SmartGuard mode sometimes because it wouldn't give me enough insulin. The new model, way better. And remember, it's a learning model. So it might not be perfect on that first week or two, but give it some time, give it a couple months, and try to get the timing of the insulin to food right, like I spoke about earlier. It takes a lot of patience and resistance sometimes to not eat whenever, whatever. I mean, sometimes the companies advertising insulin pumps will be like, you can eat anything, and well, yes, you can eat everything, but if you want to make your life easier, you want to time the food to the insulin, and you want to make sure that you're not overeating, and that and you're not eating a lot of putting fuel on the fire, that you're not eating a big meal or a lot of carbohydrates when your blood sugar is already high. So it's definitely takes some self-discipline, but the rewards are numerous, and you can not think about, it just put the, figure out, how to get your blood sugar in range. And if it's not working out, there's probably settings on your pump that need adjustment. So talk to your doctor, your diabetes trainer. They're here to help. So hopefully this has been insightful. I have written a free ebook. You can get it on my website, insulinpumplife.com. What they don't tell you about insulin pumps, but I will. I hope that this is so insightful to you. And please share your questions and stories. I will try to follow up and answer any questions. And you can subscribe on my website, insulinpumplife.com. Follow me on YouTube, and let me know what you want to know more about. So that's a intro to the 780G insulin pump. I am not associated with Medtronic. I am just a patient who is very eager to tell you about how great it is, and to educate people in general about what are insulin pumps, and what is all this about. All right. Thank you.